Planning for retirement is one of the most important financial topics you have to take the time to understand and think ahead for, because if you don't, you will work for the rest of your life. Now, I strongly believe that if you understand the 10 mistakes that I'm about to discuss, the odds of achieving a successful retirement will increase significantly, which it costs nothing but a few minutes of your time, and all I ask is that if you do find value in this content, that you consider hitting the like and subscribe button for future content like this. With that said, the first retirement planning mistake to avoid is not starting early. You see, no matter your situation, the earlier you start, the better, because it allows your money to have more time to grow throughout the years. In fact, this is simply referred to as the power of compound interest, which means as you invest, your money will grow, and that growth will continue to compound larger and larger the longer that you invest. Think of this like a snowball rolling down a hill. At the beginning, it's really small, but as it keeps rolling, the idea is that it will continue to get larger and larger, growing faster and faster over time. In fact, one of the most popular investments that's widely recognized as the US stock market benchmark is the S&P 500, which tracks 500 of the largest publicly traded US-based companies, where from 1928 to 2024, it has averaged over a 10% annual return. And so according to data collected by Gallup and MassMutual, the average retirement age is typically in the low 60s, with the most recent age being 62. So to understand the importance of starting early, let's say that you start at the age of 32 with no retirement savings at all, and you start to contribute $750 per month, which includes all retirement accounts such as the 401k, or IRA. By doing this, after 30 years, once you reach the age of 62, you would have an estimated $1.5 million portfolio. And notice how after the first year, your investments would have grown in value by $400, but by the 30th year of consistently doing this, your retirement savings would have grown in value by $140,000 in that last year alone. Now, for example purposes, let's say that you instead started at the age of 22. That would allow 10 more years for your money to compound, where your retirement savings would then be worth over $4 million by the age of 62. And same as before, the first year your investments would have grown $400, but because you gave your money 10 more years to grow, that 40th year alone, you would have grown your portfolio by $377,000. So not just does having more time allow you to make more money, but it also requires significantly less money out of your pocket in order to do so. As you can see in this image, the goal is to reach $1 million by age 65, and Jade, who started at age 25, only needed to contribute $400 per month, where Juanita, starting at age 45, needed to contribute $2,000 per month. This, in fact, resulted in a total amount required from Jade being $192,000, where Juanita had to put in $480,000 in order to reach $1 million. So the earlier you start, the better your financial future could be. And moving on to the number 2 mistake is contributing too little. For starters, understand that no matter the amount you contribute, you're at least getting started and in the right direction. But if you were to stick to only contributing a very small amount consistently over a long period of time, the odds of having enough to live off of at retirement for the rest of your life will be much lower. In fact, if you instead contributed $200 per month rather than $750 over the next 30 years, your end retirement savings would be roughly $400,000, which for many, that would be extremely difficult to live off of. But do understand that using retirement accounts also comes with great tax advantages, where a traditional retirement account, such as the traditional 401k or the IRA, you can get a tax deduction on the amount you contribute in the given year, where you can then invest completely tax-free, but whatever you withdraw at retirement, you will have to pay taxes on. Where if you were to use a Roth retirement account, such as the Roth 401k or the Roth IRA, you will have to pay taxes on what you contribute into the account, but from there, everything you invest is completely tax-free, and once you pass the age of 59 and a half, assuming you properly met the guidelines, you could withdraw anything you want from the account completely tax-free. And the last account I'll mention here that can actually be used at any time, you don't have to wait until retirement, but that would be to use a health savings account known as an HSA, where for many, you can actually invest in this account. Now, this account is a triple tax advantaged account because it allows you to get a tax deduction on what you contribute up front. It allows you to avoid taxes throughout the years of investing and for any withdrawals that you make, which can be done at any time when used for a qualified medical expense. And just understand that these accounts are so beneficial that there are limits on how much you can contribute into them every single year, where the max for the IRA is $7,000 as of 2025. If you're over 50, that is $8,000 per year. For the 401k, the limit is $23,500. If you're over 50, that is $34,750. And then for the HSA, if you're single, that's $4,300, where if you have a family, that could be $8,550. Understand that you don't need to max out each of these accounts in order to be on a strong pace for retirement, but I more so just want you to be aware that these are some of the best accounts to prioritize for your financial future. Knowing that, the next mistake is ignoring inflation. Now, inflation is known as the increased cost of living, where it's reported that 30% of retirees say they are considering a temporary job because they are worried they will outlive their retirement savings. And 71% of retirees cite inflation as the reason that going back to work is on their mind. Now, I've gone into extreme detail in another video that shows how much you should save for retirement by age, and if we include income factors such as a potential pension and Social Security, some may very well be able to live off of $1 million or less in retirement savings. It also depends on the lifestyle that you live, but if you have many years until retirement, inflation will significantly impact how much you're going to need by the time that you retire. For instance, let's just say that right now you are 25 and want to ensure that at the minimum you have a safe retirement by the age of 65. Rather than needing, let's just say, $1 million in today's economy to retire, by 2065, assuming inflation increases at a rate of 2.5%, then you will need close to a $2.7 million portfolio by the year of 2065. And so in order to actually achieve that goal, if you are 25, you would want to contribute $500 per month toward retirement savings until you're 65. But don't forget that your income is also likely to rise with inflation, so a $60,000 income in 2025 could actually be close to a $100,000 income by the year of 2045, and you may very well be able to invest more. Knowing that, let's now go over the number 4 mistake, that is a lack of diversification. When it comes to investing, there is an infinite amount of choices that you can make, but the quote that I love referring to here from one of the best investors of all time, Ray Dalio, is when he said, "You have to be defensive and aggressive at the same time. If you're not aggressive, you're not going to make money, and if you're not defensive, you are not going to keep money." So rather than going all in on one company's stock, diversifying your investments across many areas such as stocks, real estate, crypto, fixed income securities, the list literally goes on. But the biggest lesson I believe there is to learn here is that if your investment declines 90%, you are going to need to gain 900% just to break even. Or say it declines 50%, you would need to gain 100% to break even. So if you're overly aggressive and not properly diversified, you could be adding significant risk to your retirement. In fact, my dad worked at General Motors for many years and knew others he worked with that invested a large portion of their retirement savings into GM stock, and when the company went bankrupt in 2009, it ended up costing them many more years of having to work. Many lessons to live and learn from, but the biggest takeaway here is to avoid putting all your eggs in one basket. With that said, the next mistake is overlooking fees. When it comes to investing, you can place your money in an index fund that is controlled by an algorithm, so it's super cheap to own. Or you could have a fund manager actively pick and choose the investments that go inside of the fund that you invest into. The difference is that an actively managed fund typically costs much more, and the difference could easily be between 0.5% to 1%, which significantly adds up over time. In fact, Charles Schwab specifically states that their passively managed mutual funds have an average cost of 0.05%, where their actively managed funds average a 0.76%. So if you invested into the average index fund at 0.05%, using the example earlier of $750 per month, returning 10% per year for 30 years, that would result in an end portfolio of $1.46 million, where the total cost throughout the entire time would have ended up being just under $14,000, where a passively managed fund at 0.76% would have resulted in an end portfolio of $1.28 million, where the total cost in fees was nearly $200,000, which is over $180,000 difference in fees because you picked an actively managed fund and overlooked the impact of the fees long term. Which, not to mention, but index funds are also known to outperform actively managed funds, where one of the best investors of all time, Warren Buffett, bet $1 million with hedge funds that the S&P 500 would beat them over a 10-year period, which the results weren't even close. And the last thing to understand here is if you have some sort of financial advisor to understand what fees they charge. Many charge based on the total amount of money that you have invested, also known as the assets under their management, which could range anywhere from 0.25% all the way up to 2% per year in fees, which can easily cost you tens to even hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. So depending on your financial background, a financial advisor may very well be worth it, but don't forget the mistake of overlooking the fees. Knowing that the number 6 mistake is selling during market downturns. Say an emergency came up and you didn't have an emergency fund in place, or it wasn't enough, so you were forced to sell your investments during a market downturn. That would be among the worst time to sell. It's actually the exact opposite of the investing principles that you would want to follow, that is, buy low, sell high. So let's say that you had $100,000 in the S&P 500 in 2008. Well, in that year alone, the S&P 500 declined 38%, which means by the end of 2008, your portfolio would now be worth $62,000. So if you lost your job, have family to take care of, or other significant costs maybe due to the housing market crisis, and you were not prepared, so now you have to sell your investments. To keep things simple, let's say that you panicked and sold all your investments, so now you have nothing invested in the market. Or instead, if you were able to keep that money invested in the market, by 2013, the portfolio would have rebounded back to $100,000, and by 2021, it would now be well over $300,000. All in all, if the market is in a downturn, if anything, you'd want to be buying instead of selling. The best investors give their money time to grow and ensure financial security so that they have the control and flexibility to make the choices when they want. Besides that, the next mistake to avoid is relying on Social Security. Just recently, the IRS stated that the average Social Security benefit is $1,976 per month, which is roughly $24,000 per year, which it's reported that about half of seniors get at least 50% of their retirement income from Social Security. But unfortunately, the reserves controlled for these payments are expected to decline, where it states the Social Security program is running out of money and payments have exceeded the program's revenue each year since 2021. And the same article also projects that Social Security will only be able to pay 83% of the scheduled benefits by the year of 2035, and that could even shrink to 73%. So understand that income from Social Security is only supplemental, the future is uncertain, and if anything, it is expected to decline, and it's not going to be enough to live off. All in all, the focus needs to be on building what is in your control, such as your career, and the accounts you use, like a 401k, IRA, or HSA, to name a few. With that said, the next mistake is underestimating healthcare. Now, one of the biggest expenses underestimated for those retired is healthcare costs, which is exactly why I highly recommend the HSA if you are eligible and to invest as much as you can throughout the years. But of course, thinking ahead for these expenses may seem very difficult because the severity is unknown, but having cushion with your finances is always the best approach that you can make. In fact, something I highly recommend you trying is a free tool from Fidelity that shows in only a few clicks of a button what the expected amount is that you should save for your own retirement for healthcare costs. So to go over a simple example, let's say that you're a male currently at the age of 30, you want to retire by the age of 62 and expect to live until age 88, then you should plan to save at least $310,000 for your healthcare in retirement. And let's say that you were to put $2,000 into an HSA solely to invest into the stock market. After 30 years, that would be close to $330,000, and it's completely free for qualified medical expenses. Knowing that, the next mistake, the number 9, is poor tax planning. This is something really important to understand because right now you may be paying high taxes, but when you retire, your taxable income is more than likely going to be much lower. In fact, if you are married filing jointly, as of 2025, you can use a $30,000 standard deduction. So as long as you and your spouse combined stay under $126,000, any long-term capital gains that are a part of that would be taxed at 0%. One of my favorite approaches when it comes to this is investing for growth now for a tax-free dividend income later on, using specifically a Roth IRA where the taxes don't matter, which I made a complete video on. If you're interested to check it out, I'll have it linked in the description below. The concept here is that you are able to build up a significant Roth IRA where by the time that you're at retirement, you can invest into high-producing investments like JPI or JPQ, along with strong index funds like the S&P 500 to average a 4, 5, 6% dividend yield that is completely tax-free, with the goal to live off of that income and never have to sell the actual investments in the portfolio. Knowing that, to finish off this video, the last mistake is the lack of a clear withdrawal plan. At this point, the goal is that you built up a significant portfolio with your retirement savings, and now you have to ensure that you don't blow your funds or even outlive your savings. For this, a popular rule that many use is called the 4% rule, also viewed as the rule of 25. With this rule, you can see how much you would ideally be able to withdraw every year based on your position in order order to sustain your savings for over 30 years. An example for this is, let's say that you want $5,000 per month to live off of, which is $60,000 per year. This means that you would then want to have at least $1.5 million in retirement savings. Whether you believe you have enough or not, this is crucial to ensure that you do not run out of funds and that everything is properly secured. And know that if you are unsure how to manage your wealth properly, it is well worth talking to a professional. Now, I will be leaving other relevant videos I created that I think you'd greatly benefit from, linked in the description below. And while you're at it, I also highly recommend checking out the company Empower, which is a completely free platform that I like to use, where you can easily view and manage all your finances in one place. Besides that, I'll also have direct links to some of my top recommended financial tools and services, investing platforms, high yield savings accounts, and many other financial products that may very well help you out. And I will say, depending on the one you choose, I may earn a commission for it, which is greatly appreciated. End of the day, I want you to do what's best for yourself, but do know that if you want to see exactly how I allocate each of my investments and other exclusive content, to consider checking out my Patreon, linked in the description below. And as always, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notifications button for future content like this.